Hey everyone, welcome to Dental All Stars. I'm Alex Nottingham, CEO of All Star Dental Academy, and our podcast topic is $1 million meetings by the Millionaire Maker, actually. And I have a very exciting guest for you. Ken is going to be my guest, and he's the founder and president of PILMA, the Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association. Having over 30 years of legal experience, he is known as the $1 million or Millionaire Maker for a reason. He has helped lawyers across the country double, triple, or quadruple their law practices and income. And the first thing you're thinking to yourself is, law, what does this have to do with dentistry? Well, it has everything to do with dentistry, because the common denominator to the success of businesses is these principles of business that you're going to learn. And I don't limit exposing all of you to just people in the dental field. I'm going to find the best people around the world to educate you, to educate myself, to educate all of our followers and members, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. And Ken and I go way back. Ken and I studied at Tony Robbins together. I was actually his coach for a while at Tony Robbins. And for over a decade, Ken and I have worked together in a mastermind group. And he has continued to coach me, and I've coached him, and we coach each other through the mastermind group. And it's just amazing what we have learned. And recently in our mastermind discussion, he said, guys, I got a meeting process that has doubled many of my businesses. He has a company not only that teaches lawyers, much like All Star Dental Academy does in teaching dental offices, practice management and marketing and so on. He also has, a handful of other $1 million businesses, and he's been doubling them using this meeting process, these $1 million meetings that we're going to talk about today. So I trust you're going to learn a lot and really enjoy the content and also his beautiful, deep voice. So enjoy the podcast. So Ken, welcome to the podcast, and great to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So tell me about meetings, and how do we improve our meetings, and how do we get to these $1 million meetings?
Yeah, it's meetings. I always felt like meetings sucked. And I think most people think meetings suck, that they're time vampires, and they can be if not done properly. And the two main reasons that meetings suck is because, number one, they're boring, and number two, they're ineffective. So I am also a certified scaling up coach with Vern Harnish, the Rockefeller Habits, and they have a system of meetings that I adapted to my companies. And when I started doing this, my business started doubling, and the meetings got better. The left hand knew what the right hand was doing. We got so much more done as far as implementation, execution, and just overall the team was a lot happier, and they got to be involved more, and it just really takes you to the next level, in my opinion.
Excellent. Now, there are some prerequisites to meetings, right? We spoke about this last time that we talked offline, which was you have to, because the goal is we'd like to double, triple, whatever our business is, or grow our business, even 10%, 20%, whatever that might be. And we read all these books, and we know that meetings are helpful, necessary, but like you said, they become boring and a waste of time. Yet you have, and I remember we discussed this at the mastermind, and you attributed this formula to doubling many of your $1 million businesses doubled from this strategy. So before we get to the meetings, there's a prerequisite, right? You got to have the right people, what have you. You were telling me about. Tell me, what are the prerequisites to being able to do these $1 million meetings?
Well, you got to have the right people in the meeting. What I'm saying is, essential people should be there. And of course, in any business, you want as many A players as you can have. And A players are people that are humble but confident, They're hungry not just for money, but to grow personally and professionally. And they're people smart. And what I mean by people smart is they're able to get along with people, yet they can disagree. Because a key to meetings is everybody sits there and just says yes to the leader, then you're not on accomplishment. You got to have a little conflict. And the problem is a lot of people, when you start disagreeing with them, they take it personal, and you can't. The old mafia movies, it's just business. It's nothing personal. And so the deal is you want to have healthy conflict. And what I mean by that is somebody's okay for somebody to disagree or point out something. And then that's the way you come up with great ideas. Because if everybody just sits there and somebody's got an idea, they say, okay. Or if somebody sits there and say, it's not okay, but I'm not going to argue why it's not okay. I'm just not going to do it, or I'm going to prove to you I'm going to sabotage it. When they're walking out of the meeting, can you believe that shit? You don't want that. You want it in the meeting. And you got to also get people that are introverted, you got to pull them out. Because some people got great ideas, but they just don't want to ruffle the waters or. So, I mean,
So the right people are critical.
Yeah, and you got to have an agenda. If you don't have an agenda, then why have a meeting, Because you want to have an agenda before you go to the meeting, and you want to make sure the right people are at the right meeting, because some meetings might be more tactical, some meetings might be more strategic. And you want to start on the time and end and keep it going, and you don't want to go down rabbit holes. And whoever's leading the meeting, whether it be you, the dentist, or the lawyer, or the doctor, or you could have somebody else. It could be your office manager, it could be your COO, it could be whoever it's going to be. It might be a marketing meeting. You might have your marketing director there, but having an agenda also helps them get prepared for it, so they know what if they need to do some research. Like I had a meeting this morning, and one of the part thing is for me. I kind of like the big picture. I get to talk about the big picture, so I sit down and I jot out 3 or 4 things I'm going to do, and other people are prepared because they know that we're going to talk about this subject matter, so they've got whatever research or people they've talked to, they've got it all down so that we're not wasting time. Well, let me see. I got this over here somewhere. Let me go find this. No, everybody's got their stuff together, and you run it. You chop. You run through it, and you're not wasting time. And we're getting stuff. You just got to be careful. People taking you down rabbit holes. On some of these meetings,
getting off topic.
Yeah, like if you're having a tactical meeting, you don't want to get into what your big 3-year plan is, right?
Right.
We'll do that at strategic meeting, right? I mean,
Gotcha.
And you might have different people there. I don't want my people, my minions, sitting there dealing with strategy. I want them to be talking. I want them in my tactical meetings, right?
So you gotta start on time, end on time, have an agenda. And also make sure that you have the right people in the right meetings. And you're not getting off topic.
Right.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
And
excuse me.
So there are 4 levels of these meetings. Tell me how that they play out, or what are the order of these $1 million meetings?
Okay. Well, one of them, the very simplistic one, is what I call the daily check-in. Vern Harnish in Rockefeller Habits calls it the daily huddle. And really, everybody in your business should be in one of these. You might not, depends on how big you are. Like with, I'm not an expert on dentists per se, but like with lawyers, we have maybe have a pre-litigation section, have a daily huddle. Maybe the litigation section have a daily huddle. You know what I'm saying? Or you could have it where all your, however you want to set it. Or you can do it if you're small. Just have everybody come in, because they're not going to last over 5 to 7 minutes. That's the key to them, because
the daily huddle is 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, and dentists are very familiar with this concept of the huddle in general, and this format they can add to the daily huddle.
Yeah. So the deal is you don't even want to sit down, because it's not going to be that long. Okay. So everybody should go in with 3 things, or maybe just 2, possibly 3. What was my biggest win yesterday? What one thing that I get done yesterday was a bigger win? Just one. What was my biggest priority for today? Just one. And then if I'm stuck on anything, what am I stuck on? And the key there is you don't want to deal with what they're stuck in now. You want to take it outside the meeting. Somebody in that meeting probably can help them. You say, Sally, say, okay, all right, Gene, we'll take this outside the meeting. As soon as we get over, even if you're remote, you can say, okay, we'll get on the phone or we get on a Zoom meeting. We'll handle this outside. I can help you with this. I got something, or I can put you in the right direction. So if you do that, you think about that. That should not take over 30 seconds, right? At tops. So unless if you got much over 12 or 14 people in a meeting, then you probably need to divide them up somehow into different sections or different divisions or whatever. And every business is different when it comes to this. But these are good. These are good because it lets the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. It can eliminate a lot of emails. And I think the big deal is it keeps people focused on what their priorities are. And it's good for you as a manager. If you're hearing the same person got the same priority 3 days in a row, something's wrong, right? They're not getting something done. And it also helps people get unstuck, maybe, and very quickly. And people know if somebody's priority is getting this done today and somebody walks in the office or somebody hits a phone call, they know it's important to them. So they try to, that's a priority for Jane. So let's get this phone call to her, or let's get this patient to her, or whatever. Or let's get this salesperson to her, whatever it might be. Where I see people make mistakes on these is they get to, and you have to, I had this problem. I'll have somebody say, what was your big win yesterday? Well, I just got a lot of things accomplished on this project. That's too vague. You got you want to be very specific. Or they say, my priority today is I just got a hell of a checklist to do today, or I've got, like 10 things I got. No. Or they get into the stuck stuff and they sit there and want to give you a War and Peace dissertation on what their problem is. No, just tell me very quickly. My problem is I can't get this machine to work. Okay, or I can't get up with a certain person I need to get up with. Whatever that is, that's all I need to hear. You know what I'm saying? So the D is to keep them short and keep people reined in and keep them focused. And I've seen Vern Hardison on stage bring in some executives, and he tried to show them how to do it, and they got very broad, and he had to reel them in. You've got to be specific. That's so
very quick, very specific. What was your win yesterday, and what is your priority today?
Yeah,
and then bonus is if you're stuck. That's it. And actually, it was fun because we talked about this, and I started practicing this in All-Star, and so far I'm loving it. I mean, it's quick. It's 5 minutes, these huddles, and we get what's needed and then move on. And it's nice because you get like a little tasting of where your team is at without having to waste hours. So, okay, that's the huddle. And I think a lot of dentists are comfortable with the huddle. They do it at some capacity already. I think this is a good tactic to use from the business sense, just to get a general sense of things. Dentists usually use the huddle to prepare for the day for patients, but I think this is good because everybody in the practice is going to have a different role, and we can see the front versus the back, clinical versus admin. What are their priorities? What was their win? And it can also be subjective. I had a patient and we had this heart to heart and I thought that was a big win, or they was afraid of this and this happened, and that can be 10-second win, and then you feel it and move on through the day. Very positive. Okay, so that's the area of the morning huddle. Got it? Makes sense. I think a lot of dentists can do it and just adjust it. There are 3 more levels to this. What's the next level?
The weekly tactical meeting, and this is, and so the key to here is not everybody's going to be in this meeting. Okay, you won't. I call it my inner circle. Some people call it executive meeting. I want my key people that I call them stakeholders. They might not actually own part of the business, but they treat it like their business. It's going to be like your office manager, your director of marketing. In law firms, we bring in the intake manager. It's a lot of managers or people that are key, And this is really, you do this once a week, lasts 45 minutes to an hour. I just got off one before we started here. And basically, you go through This is just to make sure everything's getting implemented, executed off of some of the other meetings I'm going to talk about later. So the one thing we look at is what are our KPIs, what are important, and they're different for every business, right? Whatever your 2 or 3 to 5 KPIs are, you want to review those for either the last quarter, the last week, last month, however you do it. You know, we do it from week to week, and then what you want to do is you want to go in and I do what we call the open item. You know, where I get in and talk about the big picture. And then we would check in on what projects we're working on, because we've got quarterly projects we're working on, what's going on here, this or that. And then at the end of it, we just kind of say, okay, anybody got anything, you know, because it's something could come up. So it's really, or we have any problems with the employees. I mean, it's just really about getting stuff done and about the day-to-day running of the business, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Which we're calling the tactical area of the business. Yeah.
So you do those every week. I guess you could do them twice a month if you're small. I mean, I've got Pillman that I only got 7 employees, but we do them, and I only got 4 people on my tactical meeting. But we do them every week. But we just find it keeps things moving along. But and some mornings they last 30 minutes, and some mornings they go to an hour. Depends on what we got going on. But we got an agenda. We get it, and they know what they got. They do the research. Yeah, we can talk about things in the future. You know, like where are we at on getting this done that we're supposed to have done by the end of the quarter, things like that. So you are talking a little bit.
I've been playing with this a little bit, and I think it would be good for us to touch back in about 6 months to see how we're doing. But from the last week or so, I've been trying these out, and I call the first the huddle. The second is I call the KPI meeting, which is similar to what you're doing, and it's quick, boom, 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 agenda items, and and we do that very quickly, and it's true as well. People can end up wanting to talk a lot here, and we just want to get those numbers and see where they are. And what's miraculous is I'm like, wow, I haven't even thought about these numbers in a long time, and every department has different numbers, and they're reporting on it, and we're seeing how things are improving, where it's going. They feel more accountable. They are more accountable. And then the last section, once we get past the KPI, we can have time to do the workshopping or the discussions, or you could even call it old business and new business, and make sure you're carrying on week to week when it comes to that process. So that I think that's brilliant. And then so that's tactical. And then there's 2 more levels. Maybe we can call it operational and then strategic. So we have the huddles, which is 5 minutes a day. You then have these tactical meetings, which are either KPI or what do you call them, Ken?
We just call them I just call them tactical
tactical meetings. Tactical weekly meetings. And then now we're moving to the operational level, which is this is what?
Well,
the next meeting.
Next meeting is more strategic.
Strategic.
And we do this. It's the same people that are in the weekly tacticals, but we'll do this once a month for like 2 to 3 hours, and basically we get a little bit more in the key. We look a little bit deeper into our key financial metrics, like what percentage of our gross is allocated to staff, to marketing, and see where we're at. You can also say how much per employee, how much money did we make this month? You know, things like that is kind of interesting because you can kind of got something to gauge. See, you know, because you want to gross or net per employee, because sometimes we get too heavy on staff, right? Because we think we need more help. But if you start seeing your numbers go down, then you got a problem. So you need to do something about that. You need to.
And this is once a month, right?
Once a month. For
like 2-3 hours, you say? How long is this meeting?
Max 3 hours.
Max 3 hours. And then,
yeah.
For a dental office, though, do you have the entire team on these meetings?
No,
you might be talking.
No, just the people that you had on your tactical meetings, your weekly tactical meetings.
So again, thinking about a dental office,
key stakeholders.
Key stakeholders. So if I'm a dental office or a law firm, I'm not having every team member on the weekly and monthly meetings. You're saying
No.
so for a dental office, this might be your office manager or team leaders would be on the weekly and monthly meetings, correct?
Yes.
But the
Yes.
huddles, you would have everybody, right?
Yeah, and they might be up, might not be all on the same huddle, but most of the time they would. I would think for most dental offices.
Yeah, you have everybody. Okay, so that's a good key differentiating is that huddles, you can have everybody. Again, I'm trying to translate this for the dental offices. On the weekly KPI calls or what have you, tactical calls, you'll have your key stakeholders, team leaders, and that's about 45 minutes to an hour. And then for your monthly max 2 to 3 hour
Yeah.
strategy meetings, you're going to have
Yeah.
your key stakeholders.
Yeah, and so you want to. This is a great question. This is one thing we do too. At each one of the monthly meetings, we ask each person, "What do you think we should keep doing, start doing, or stop doing?"
Wow.
Yeah,
What should we
and
keep doing, stop doing, start doing,
Yeah, each member.
keep, start, stop.
Yeah, and
That's
and then
great.
we also ask people, what are you getting feedback from the staff? I mean, the other, because not everybody's there. So what are you hearing? Or what are they happy? Are they complaining? Do they think they're getting underpaid, overworked, holidays, da da da? What's going on? And then also, somebody, what are you hearing back from our clients, our patients? What is the feedback we're getting? Are people liking us? I mean, how's our Google reviews going? If we're doing, Net Promoter Score, what's that? These are the type of things you want to talk about. And Net Promoter Score is just the feedback where if you've ever been to a business and they send you a survey that says rate us 1 to 10, and it's this formula that you figure out. You can just Google it, Net Promoter Score.
Net
And it's very
promoter
simple.
score.
Yeah, so basically you want 9s and 10s. If and then you do this whole big deal based on a formula, and if you hit a certain point, then you're doing good. If you're not, you need to work on it. So we deal with that, and then also we like to talk about our core values, and give us some feedback on what you've seen our staff or whatever are doing to live our core values, right? And then we have some open eye. And then most of the time, I spend about 30 minutes to 45 minutes doing some kind of teaching on leadership. I'm a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. But I really don't use it that much with my lawyers. They think they're all great leaders. So, but some of them do. But I try to teach them.
Well, my dentists are a little more humble, so they're open to improve as leaders.
Yeah. So I take some of his courses and teach them, or take a book and make them read it, and we talk about it. Because every business needs a leader, for not a manager, but a leader for every 7 to 8 people they got in their business.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what all the gurus say. And it's like Ken Hardison, that's the gurus out there. And so your job as the leader of your company, whatever kind of company it is, should be to raise up these key people to make them leaders so that they can help make other people leaders. Because the more leaders you got, and I'm not talking about chiefs and Indian stuff, I'm talking about leaders. The job of a leader is to help bring other people up. Okay? That's your main goal. Because there's what they call a lid. You as the owner of your business, whatever it is, or the leader, nobody can get higher than you are when it comes to leadership. So you got to raise your elevation. And John Maxwell talks about the 5 stages of leadership. And one of them is just because you got the title. That don't really mean nothing. And then the other one is because, they admire you and look up to you. Then the other one's because you're helping them, and then you get to the whole big deal. But there's a whole big deal about that. So I try to instill that in my people, that their job should be to help. Don't be worried about, you seen it, in corporate America, everybody's worried about somebody getting above them, so they try to keep everything to themselves and make other people look bad. Well, that's a bad business model. The business model you want is you want everybody bringing everybody up.
Right.
We all profit by it.
It reminds me of Good to Great, and in that book, Level 5 Leadership, which is personal responsibility and humility. Yeah. So those are level 5 leaders, where it's about, yes, bringing people up. It's not about you. That's a good mantra. It's not about me, right? It's about the mission, the vision, and being, that's one thing that you and I admired about Tony Robbins is he was a tough guy, but he was all about the vision, no matter what, even beyond himself. So whether you like him or not, he was so committed to that, which was really impressive. So we covered these three type of meetings: the huddle, we then go into the KPI, the tactical meeting, the strategy meeting once a month, the 2 to 3 hour meeting. And then the last meeting is a quarterly meeting, which you say is a day long, this meeting. Tell me about that one.
Yeah. This is the most important meeting. This is where you can really make some gigantic leaps. So number one, it's your same little inner core group. So you get that, right? And you could decide to bring some people in on this that you don't on other ones. I just keep the same people on every one of those number 2, number 3, and number 4. So this one you want to kind of do off campus. What I'm saying is you don't want any interruptions, and you really want to go through. And this is like at the beginning of the year, you should be setting some goals. Vernon calls it the 5 main things. Keep the main things the main things. Don't get to, it might be I want to automate. It might be that I want to go paperless. It might be that I want to use more artificial intelligence this year. Whatever it might be, it could be that we want to raise our referrals from 20% of our business to 40% of our business. Okay, that's a big general deal. So that's your 5 goals or your 5 main things for the year. But if you sit down, what I see a lot of companies do, and law firms, and I'm sure it's did this, they just set 3 to 5 goals for the whole year that's very specific. And then what happens is everybody waits till the last quarter to try to get it done, or people get busy, life gets in the way, the business gets in the way, and they just don't get it done. So this is you go through and you look at different things, like you go back, you look at your core values. Are we living the core values? Do we need to change them? Have they changed? You figure out what your brand promise is, what your brand guarantee is, what your BHAG is. You revisit that.
And BHAG is your big, hairy goal.
Yeah, audacious goal. And that's a 10-year goal. It could be very aspirational. It can be done, but it's going to take a lot of work. And then we look at the Rockefeller's Habits Checklist. In that book, he's got 10 checklists with 4 items. You check off each one, and you can kind of work on whatever one you want to work on, except you always start with the number 1, which is you got to have alignment. Everybody on your team, everybody in your office has got to be aligned with your vision, your goals, and your core values. And if they're not, then it's not going to get done, and they're going to stick out like a sore thumb if you really push it. Whatever your core values are, So we review that and go over that. But then the key thing is that we sit down and plan out for the next 3 months. What are we going to do to try to get, and we'll do a SWOT analysis. But we only do the one at the beginning of the year, and then if we got to add to them, and it's your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Excuse me. So we take what our 5 main things are, what our SWOT analysis is, and we sit down and, okay, what 2 or 3 projects can we work on to try to help Ken obtain these 5 main things, or try to take advantage of our opportunities, or deal with our threats. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Or work on our weaknesses. So it's kind of a combination. And usually, so what I do is something you taught me, is workshopping back, years ago, where, and I know you're very familiar because you taught me. I didn't ever heard of workshopping. So I say, okay, everybody write down 3 to 5 projects you think we should do. We'll do that. We see which ones are the top. I'm the leader. I can always, overrule everything. But I try to go with consensus unless I think they're crazy. And then we pick those 2 or 3 things, and then we workshop that. And I say, okay, say like we want to increase referrals, and somebody say, well, if we did this project here, I think we could at least increase our referrals, by 50%. Okay, we're going to do that. Okay, what tasks are we going to have to do, and who's going to have to do them for this to happen over the next 12, 13 weeks? So we lay it all out on a whiteboard. What's got to be done? Checklist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's going to do it? And then we start talking about deadlines. And you might have to go to a vendor. You might have to outsource some of it. Some of it you can do in house. Some of it we might have to get somebody that's not even in the meeting and have to do it. But the deal is, when we leave that meeting, and we'll go anywhere from 2 to 4. If we got little small projects, we can do 4. But if we got big projects, maybe only 2. If we just got average 3, we agree on those projects, and then we lay out a sheet that says each project, what, who, deadline, when, and everybody agrees to it. And then when we have our weekly tactical meetings, we do a checkup on that. Where are we at on our checklist for our 3 main usually we just stay with 3, but some months we have done 4. I don't know we ever had a month we did. And some things might take so long, like we did one a couple of years ago where we were creating all our processes and procedures for our business. That took 6 months. That took 2 quarters. So we laid it out. We're going to do this, because there's 4 parts to every business. That's getting business, which is the marketing. There's fulfilling the promise, which is, with Dennis, I guess, doing the work on your mouth, And then you got admin, which is bookkeeping and HR, and then you got management. So, we broke it down into, we worked on, 2 a quarter, and then, but that's a whole nother, we could talk days on that stuff. But I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes you can't get it done in 1 quarter, so you have to have 2 quarters. But you break it up and say, okay, we're going to segment this project into, 2 quarters.
And now you mentioned as well that this is done off-site when you do these meetings. Tell me about that.
Yeah, usually we just go get a hotel room. I'm virtual, so what I do is I bring them in to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where I live. I fly all my virtual people from all over the United States in once a quarter that are on my I call it my executive team, my stakeholders. And we just go, we rent a conference room, and we do it right there in the conference room.
Right.
And then it's a good time too, because we're virtual, for everybody to get together and kind of, get to know each other. And then we look at, we lay it out. And that's when the magic happens, because things get done. If you're doing your weekly tactical meetings or your bi-weekly, however you want to do them, because everybody's being held accountable. The deal is, and you never have 2 people, you have somebody that's the head of the project. They're the key person responsible, because if you have more than 1 person responsible, nobody's responsible.
Right. If everybody's supposed to do it, nobody does it. Right.
Yeah. So that's the key. And I can tell you, and there's a book I read that gave me this idea on this one. This was not, the quarterly projects was not from Scaling Up. There's a book called the 12-Week Year. And that's where I got the idea about this. I've never had a lot of original ideas in my life, but I read a lot. I take stuff and I changed it up some to fit me, because they had all this sophisticated software.
And for those that are listening, and I'll make this warning again: don't let Ken's deep charm, Southern charm, fool you. This guy's brilliant, just so brilliant. Love what you talk about and what you bring, and it's also that humility that you really give off. That we don't know. And so we're always looking. And remember what Tony was always teach us is you look to model the best. Why try to recreate the wheel? If somebody does it better, do what they do, right? It's our ego that gets us stuck. So I really admire your commitment to learning and putting these things into play. And I'll tell you, everything that I've took that what you've done, I put into play. You've been telling me for years, do a mastermind group for your dentist. No, they're not going to like it. They're not going to understand it. And I did it. And yes, financially it's great, but most importantly, it's impact lives. It made it, they really appreciate it. And I think why are we talking about these things for those that are listening? The idea is that we can enjoy what we do. We can create a life that is what we imagine. And I know so many dentists have a vision that, of course, they want to make money, but they also like to put in great quality care, to enjoy their family, to be creative. And some of these tactics we're talking about, these $1 million meetings, can be one of those major processes to help them get there. But ultimately, I'm just going to say, and ultimately, it's just to maintain a humility and keep listening, keep learning. Go ahead, Ken.
No, I'll just say masterminds. We've been in one together for 10 years.
Yep.
And I believe I paid Jay Abraham, I paid Dan Kennedy, 20, 40, 50,000 a year to be in one. And I can tell you they're worth every dime. I run 6 masterminds.
You do. I just have one. I'm a baby mastermind.
Yeah, I started 13 years ago with one.
That's true.
And but I want to tell you this. This is what makes you feel good about what you do. I was in Vail, Colorado, about a year ago at a mastermind meeting, and I'm walking. We were on break. I'm walking down the street. So it's real beautiful streets, and this woman, a man, stopped me. Ken, is that you? I said, yeah. And this was a lawyer that had been in my mastermind back in the beginning. He's not in it now because, some of them stay in it forever, some of them stay in it for 3 to 5 years, and then they leave. And then they'll come back or whatever. But she came up to me, she says, Ken, I just want you to know, I never met the wife. It's his wife. She says, you're the reason we're in this vacation here in Vail. She says,
wow.
Well, she said, that mastermind changed our lives. She says, you changed our lives. She says, I don't know that my husband, could ever figure it out. He's a great, smart guy, but he says, you just shortcutted it for us and made us to where we're living the life. And I got chills, and I was walking back, and I got a little teary-eyed. I said, damn, this is why we do this, I mean, we like the money, but money's number 2. I mean, you change lives.
That's right.
And it wasn't just about the money. It was, and it won't. I mean, they were getting some time off to go spend, and it wasn't even the lawyer telling me thank you. It was his wife.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm a big endorsement of masterminds. I always have been, always will be. I think that they're game changers because you learn from other people's mistakes. You save a lot of money. You learn best practices. You never know it all. I learn stuff. Every mastermind I do, I learn something. These guys are out there trying new stuff. They have different deals.
Yeah, and I won't even show up to the mastermind if you're not there. But Ken, I so appreciate you being on the program, and I'll grab you and control you to come on more often. It's just you're just a wealth of knowledge, and you're always learning. And like I said, you're the Millionaire Maker. I think it's a great tool, and I know we've had discussions. You take great pride in helping others make millions, multiple millions, and these are part of the thousands of tools that you have implemented well into your business. And I'm grateful personally, and I know my listeners will be grateful listening. And so, Ken, thank you so much for coming on the program.
All right, thank you.
I trust you enjoy this episode, and go ahead and subscribe and follow, whether you're following us on your favorite podcast service or watching us on YouTube. And until next time, go out there and be an all-star.